What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben, and welcome back to the bench for another episode here on Sci-Fi Wednesdays. We are back on Anakin's Podracer, and today my goal is to try to get the entire cockpit area finished up and paint up Anakin. So if you remember from last episode, we went ahead and we added in some details. We glued everything into the basic pod itself, and I like how the details are looking. We're missing a few little minor details here and there, and the front coping needs to be addressed, but other than that, I think the addition of the pipes and the wires and whatnot really does bring it to life. So I'm pretty pleased with how this has turned out so far. Fit for the top of the pod isn't all that great. We still have that warp in the front end, but I think we should be able to fix it when we get everything glued together. Now on the front coping with all the instrument panels, I'm not really that happy with how this looks. I've compared it to the movie, I've compared it to renderings I've seen online, and it is nowhere near being accurate. Now I can't make it accurate, obviously, but I can at least get it a little bit closer. And since we're running some LEDs through there, I need to come in there and kind of light block the area anyway, so I might as well add in some extra details. And these four little sections right down here absolutely serve no purpose whatsoever. Let's go ahead and give them a purpose. Let's make them look like they do something, right? So this is my idea. So we're going to come in here, we're going to actually blank off all of these panels. We're going to cut out the center section. We're going to punch out little dials and switches out of styrene. We're then going to go ahead and make each of these places for switches. We can come in there, we can add in some details, we can add in buttons, we can add in toggles, we can add in all sorts of things, build up that detail, and hopefully make it look a little bit better. So let's go ahead and get into our first time lapse. Let's focus on the instrument panel. Let's add in those additions. Let's do some scratch building, and let's see what we can do. Make this thing look a little bit better. Alright everybody, so we are back, and after quite a bit of work there, I think we have something that looks way better than what we had originally. We've actually blanked off all those places and put in some dials, some toggle switches, and I think it's actually quite an improvement. Now how much of this will you see when it's all painted up? Well, I don't know, but I think this is an improvement over what we had, so I'm pretty happy with it. You'll notice just the switch panels themselves, I made 2 toggle switches, which is actually something that's very prominent there in the movie. He uses them to kind of jumpstart his engines, added in a couple of extra buttons and panels and all sorts of things. And making those toggle switches was honestly really, really easy. All I did was grab a circular punch. I punched out a little disc of styrene, cut that styrene disc in half, and there were my sides. Then I took a little square of styrene, glued it right in the middle at an angle down, and there's my switch. So it wasn't too bad. It's not perfect, but I think it's an improvement. Now, to kind of get some ideas what this area looks like in the movies, I came in and did a little bit of watching of the different pod racing scenes, and I noticed that we are missing a lever on the left-hand side of the cockpit tub. And that's the lever that he uses to push forward to kind of basically jumpstart and just fly down the track at the very beginning of the race. It's not here in the model. So I decided, let's add it. Why not, right? So I went poking around my spares box, and I ended up actually pulling this right here, a very tiny little control column out of my old original F4D Skyray. I've already rebuilt one, so I just been using it for parts, and this I think will work perfectly right on the side of the pod. It's not too big, it's not too small. I think it should work for this area, and I've already added in a little square of styrene. All we need to do is glue this down right on top of that, and Anakin will have his throttle lever, which I think is pretty cool. Now, if you remember from the movie, when he's having engine trouble, he does have a long cord that he unplugs and replugs in, I guess, to bypass burned out circuits or something. And I'm thinking we should add that in here. I don't know how prominent it will be. I don't know if you can be able to see it necessarily, but at least I'll know it's there. And this is kind of a cool little additional Easter egg. What I'm doing here is I'm going to grab one of my smaller drill bits. I'm going to start a pilot hole for the wire. Once that is nice and drilled out, we can then extend it. We can open it up with a larger drill bit, and then we can push through our 0.3mm solder. Now that I'm going to go ahead and use as almost like an old school telephone cord for a landline. I'm going to take that solder and wrap it around something small like a pin or maybe a drill bit, and then it'll have kind of this accordion effect. Then I can go ahead and straighten out the ends of it, push it through the dash, drape it where I want it, and secure it on the other end. Now that I have the holes drilled out, we're going to take one end of it, just push it right on through. And once I'm kind of satisfied with where this starts and how it drapes, I'll go ahead and lock it down in the back, and I'll add a little bit of super glue, and then I'll take a drop of accelerator just to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. Again, just a little bit of super glue here will keep this nicely locked into place. Do some on the front as well to fill around the wire itself. The hole isn't perfectly 0.3mm, but it's close. This should help to go ahead and solidify it in there. Then I can stretch it across, straighten out the other end, and feed that through the opening. Then all I need to do after that point is I pull it through, I make it look a little bit more on the taut side, and then I can add in some glue to lock it into place. And the last detail we need to go ahead and add in is a little bit of a plug. I think it'll be way too difficult to make a very tiny plug, so we're going to cheat the system just a little bit, and we're going to take a small square of styrene. We're going to glue that right above the wire and that opening. And that should help to go ahead and give the illusion of it being one piece. Once we paint it, you're not going to even tell that it isn't an actual plug, because this is going to cover not only the hole, but also the wire and this entry point into the console. And the last thing to do here, guys, is to work on Anakin, and we're going to jump into a time lapse, and I want to go ahead and clean up his figure, do some painting, and then work on the cockpit, get that painted up, do all the detail painting, the dry brushing, and get this thing more or less painted up and ready to go. I will say though that this figure is absolutely terrible. Everything just kind of looks like little blobs of plastic, doesn't have any real clear definition on any of his facial features. It's going to make painting him very difficult, and I don't really paint a lot of figures, so it's going to be challenging. He looks vaguely humanoid, but you know what? He honestly looks like he's been bitten by a bee. So I'm going to say that during one of his practice runs, he was flying down Beggar's Canyon, got stung by a bee. Apparently he's allergic. His face has swelled up like a watermelon, but he's a trooper. He's going to go ahead and finish off his qualifying laps, and we're just going to say that's what it is, because honestly, his figure is terrible. I don't have any other recourse though. I can't buy another one. I don't have something in this scale, and I don't have a 3D printer to print my own. So we're just going to make it work. So let's jump back into a time lapse. Let's go ahead and paint up Anakin. We'll be using a zenithal style of priming. We're going to use black. We're going to use white for the highlights, and then we're going to go ahead and come back in with some Tamiya buff for the pants and some NATO black for the belt, and of course some flat brown and different other colors to get him looking a little bit better. Then we got to move on to the cockpit and start doing some detail painting over all the switches and dials. That's got to be silver, so we're going to come in with a primer coat. We're going to then hit it with some flat black, and then we'll just dry brush silver over top of that, and that should give us kind of a dirty, kind of oily metal look, and I think that should be perfectly fine for what we got going on. So let's jump back into a time lapse, guys. Let's go ahead and paint up Anakin, paint up the cockpit here, and let's see what we can do. And fingers crossed, this turns out. So let's jump in there, let's get it done. right, everybody. So we are back, and the cockpit, Anakin, and the front consoles, they're all painted. Went ahead and came in with a nice flat black. We dry brushed silver over all the internal cockpit parts, and that is kind of what I was going for kind of a dirty, oily metal look to it. And I'm going to go ahead and now install the flight control sticks, which, mind you, they're supposed to be installed before you put this into the cockpit tub, but I figured if I did that, I would have snapped these off multiple times. So all you got to do is just trim them down a little bit, and they can drop right into place with a little bit of force, and you're good to go. Then we can go ahead and test fit Anakin and his seat right inside, and you can kind of get an idea of what we're working with here. Again, Anakin is not the best figure I've ever painted. His sculpt is super janky. I'm not really that pleased with how he's turned out, but I love how the cockpit's turned out and all the details and whatnot. I don't know if you noticed, but I did actually change his arms just a little bit. I've got one arm slightly up, one arm slightly down, as if he's kind of pulling and banking the pod at the same time. So I'm hoping that can kind of add into the excitement. It's not hugely noticeable, but I kind of like how it's turned out. Then all we need to do is glue these in place, and I think we'll be pretty much dialed in to finish everything off with a nice flat coat, and we can work on the LEDs. Anakin does fit in there. Again, he doesn't look great, but it is what it is, and it's not too bad for what we've got going on. So back into that time lapse, guys. Let's go ahead and finish off the cockpit with a nice flat coat, and then we'll be working on the LEDs. We need to go ahead and pre-tin all the wires, get those soldered up, and then we're going to mock it up and see what it looks like. So back into it, guys. Let's finish this off. We'll be back, and I'll show you guys what we come up with. All right, everybody, so we are back, and this is what we've got so far. As you can see, we've mocked up the pod. It's not glued together 100%, but we do have Anakin in there. We've got the levers in there. We've got the seat, painted everything up. Everything is flat coated. So I like how it looks, and I think next episode we can come on back, finish off everything here, glue the pod together, mask, and we can begin to paint. Zooming in real quick here, you can check out the detail on Anakin. It's not great, mind you. It is not great at all. I tried my best with what I had to work with, and it's not terrible. We're just going to say that, again, he was stung by a bee flying down Beggar's Canyon, so that's why his face looks like he's swollen. His hands are a little bit swollen as well, and we've lost some detail because it's just not very well molded. But other than that, we've got him in there. So I think from 3 feet, you're not really going to tell that he does not look like Anakin. Again, though, the switches, the dials, all the extra detailing, I love doing that, and I think it turned out to be a pretty decent addition. Zooming in a little bit more here, you can see that that front switch panel that we made with all the toggle switches plus the 3 LEDs up on top of the coping, I think that is awesome. You can even see the wire there that goes from the right to the left, and I think, again, that's a nice little Easter egg in there. We can flip on the LEDs, and there you go. So you can see the LEDs do shine quite brightly right now, but I have a plan for that. We're going to come back and mute those down just a little bit, overcoat them so we can have something to go ahead and put the decals on, and I'm hoping that should add a little bit extra life and character to the internal cockpit. But that is it, guys. I am super happy with what we've got so far. Anakin is not the greatest, but the pod itself is looking good. I loved all the detail work we did in there. I'm thinking about using some UV resin to go ahead to make some lenses for each of those 3 gauges. I think that's going to be pretty decent. We've got our wires already soldered together. Everything is shrink tubed and everything works, as you can see, so I'm pretty happy with that. And the only thing we have to worry about now is the fit between the upper and lower sections of the pod. Once we kind of figure that out, we can add in the wires and the antennas and a little satellite dish off to the side. Plus we've got some scoops that go on the very front of the pod itself. So yeah, we have quite a bit more work to do, but we are getting there. We are actually a lot closer to the end than we are the beginning. So I'm pretty happy with that. Of course, we still have the base and all that good stuff, but we'll go ahead and get on that maybe next episode. But definitely we're going to get back on this and get this one step closer to being finished up. Now, Of course, we still have the base and all the little details on that, but that will come soon. I don't know about next episode, but I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks we can jump in on that and we can get this thing all finished up. So until our next episode, guys, thank you so much for watching. Until our next episode, you guys know the drill. Go out there and get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool, and we'll see you back here on episode number 6 for Anakin's Podracer here on Sci-Fi Wednesdays. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and may the Force be with you.